and welcome to Backyard Food Guide. Today I'd like to talk about growing nasturtiums in your garden. Nasturtiums are a beautiful flower that is also edible and will bloom for months throughout the summer. So definitely well worth the effort, and there are also other added benefits that I'd like to talk about. So the garden nasturtium is also called a canary bird vine, canary flower, Indian cress, monk's cress, flame flower. There are a number of different names for it. It originated in the west coast of South America, and they have large rounded leaves that look a little bit like a water lily. And the flowers have an open funnel shape and come in a variety of different colors. In fact, there are almost 100 different varieties of nasturtium, and I'll talk a little bit about the varieties that I am growing right now. The great thing about nasturtiums is that they require very little care, and in fact, they thrive in poor to average, slightly acidic soil. It does like soil that is relatively well drained, and it, especially during dry weather, should be well watered. However, you never need to fertilize nasturtiums, and in fact, they often do better in poorer soils. So the main advantage in a vegetable garden of growing nasturtiums is that they serve as a great companion plant for things like broccoli, cabbage, cucumbers, melons, tomatoes, radishes, and they make a good trap crop for aphids. So rather than going after your tomato leaves, in fact, the aphids are likely to be more attracted to the nasturtium leaves. And nasturtiums are very prolific, as you can see from the ones in my garden. And if any aphids are on there, it would be pretty easy just to cut off a few of the leaves if the aphids are concentrated onto a few leaves, or in fact just to hose them off. And a strong blast of water could kill the aphids but not harm any of your nasturtium leaves as well. So what's nice also about the nasturtiums is that they work well in the garden beds and in containers. So many varieties will cascade down containers, either a window box or a flower basket, and look very, very beautiful. If you're planning to use nasturtiums in a container, watch out for the combination of flowers that you're going to put in, because you're not going to need to fertilize the nasturtium as much as you might need to for other kinds of container flowers that are out there. So for nasturtiums, I would recommend direct sowing into your garden after last frost. They don't transplant very well, or if you want to start them indoors, it might be a good idea to either use a newspaper pot or a peat pot so that you could plant the pot right into the garden without having to disturb the roots. I recommend soaking the seeds first or scratching them with a nail file a little bit to speed up the germination. Nasturtiums, as I'd mentioned, come in many different varieties, and some of the dwarf nasturtiums would be ideal for containers. So I recommend the peach melba, strawberries and cream, and the whirlybird are great varieties for containers. The semi-trailing variety can be done in containers, but they tend to be a little bit bigger. And I have the jewel mix in my garden right now, but also I'm planning to put some of the peach melba into containers. So some of the semi-trailing varieties that are quite pretty include the Tip Top Alaska, Empress of India, and Troika. And then last but not least would be the climbing variety, and that would include the apricot twist and also the tall trailing mixed. The nasturtiums are edible, and that would mean that the flowers, the buds, the stems, and the leaves are all edible. They have a little bit of a differing flavor, but all have a peppery, mustard-like aroma, with the flowers being the most mild. So they have that peppery flavor, and they can be added into salads and vinaigrettes. And I'll give some ideas on ways that they can be used in cooking. So the leaves and petals are extremely nutritious, and you're going to want to gather them for eating early in the morning while the blossoms are still plump with moisture. And some, depending on time of year, sometimes you may want to snip away the base of each of the flowers because they might be a little bitter. So it would be a good idea to give them a taste to see if you need to remove just the bottom little bit of the base. The nutrition includes vitamin C and iron. The leaves also have antibiotic properties. These plants also contain high amounts of manganese, iron, different kinds of flavonoids, and beta-carotene. Nasturtiums are used in traditional medicine and can treat a wide range of illnesses and conditions. So because there is a medicinal aspect to it, of course, I would recommend not taking large doses of nasturtium. Obviously, it would, I think, take a lot to be harmful, but especially if you're already on other kinds of medications, then you're going to want to be careful with the dosage. But the amounts that I'm recommending in some of these recipes are relatively low and should be safe for most people. So one of the ways to use the very pretty flowers would be to freeze them in ice cube trays, and they would look really beautiful in summery drinks. The picture that I'm showing includes other kinds of flowers, of course, but definitely you can see that the larger flower there is the nasturtium. Another interesting way to use the nasturtium leaves and petals would be to make a pesto. So this came from the Martha Stewart website, and it is a pesto that uses nasturtium leaves rather than basil leaves. So it includes 2 cups of nasturtium leaves. It's a good idea to boil them just very, very quickly. So a quick blanching of about 15 seconds should do the trick. A half cup of the thinly sliced nasturtium stems, a half cup of toasted pine nuts, 4 cloves of garlic, 1 cup of olive oil, and a 1/4 cup of grated Parmesan cheese. And you can put that all into a blender for a really peppery, nice pesto to use in your recipes. Another way to use nasturtium is to infuse it into either a white vinegar or a apple cider vinegar. It could be quite nice as well. Another idea that I've seen is the Nasturtiums Stir-Fry. You can use the leaves sliced into small strips and then add the flowers at the very end so that they stay very plump and beautiful in your stir-fry. And this is a really beautiful idea. It is the nasturtium and grilled zucchini omelet. And as you can see by this photo, it looks really beautiful and is a nice way to serve a summer omelet. So I hope that you found this video to be useful and will be growing and using nasturtiums in your garden. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.